JP Morgan tracked investor behavior for 20 years and found that the average retail investor earned 2.9% per year, while the S&P 500 was running about 10% at that exact same period. Now, that entire gap, every single dollar, was not caused by picking bad stocks. It was not caused by choosing the wrong ETFs or by some missing secret strategy that investors had. It was caused by one single behavior. That behavior is selling. When you look at Jack Bogle, he built Vanguard on one rule. Warren Buffett built a $148 billion stockpile on one single rule. Charlie Munger said the exact same rule in very different ways over 60 years. The rule, of course, never sell. Today, I want to show you the data behind it, the personal cost of breaking it, which I've experienced, and exactly how it connects to every position in my portfolio. So let's go ahead and get into it. So let's be precise about what this rule actually means, because never sell is not the same as holding for an extended amount of time or a long time. Every investor intellectually understands that holding for long periods produce better returns. When you start looking at 10, 20, 30 years, it's going to be a better return to buy and hold than moving in and out of positions. But almost none of them follow the behavioral implementation of understanding when the crash arrives or when you see the headlines that are saying the world is going down. The rule as Bogle practiced it, and as Warren Buffett described it, selling is the exception that requires extraordinary justification, not the norm that you can just override with discipline. The default operating position is permanent ownership in the market. You buy a position with the expectation of holding that position indefinitely. The only legitimate reason and the cause for selling is if there is a fundamental change in the underlying business or the index thesis. We are not talking about a price decline, a scary headline, a miss in quarterly earnings, not a geopolitical event, and not because your position is down or something else looks better to move those funds into. For an ETF investor, this is simpler than it sounds. The VOO thesis is the S&P 500 or the 500 largest companies within America will collectively be worth more in 20 years than they are today. Now, that thesis has never changed regardless of what news says and regardless of what the headlines are saying. That is the thesis for the VOO. On the other side, we have the SPMO. The thesis here is the 100 highest momentum stocks and the S&P 500 rebalanced twice a year will outperform the broader market on a long enough time horizon. This thesis, of course, is not invalidated when there's a 5, 10, even a 15% drawdown within the quarter. When the thesis is intact, the rule is intact, which the rule is never sell. Here's the specific data that makes that never sell rule not just a philosophy, but more of a mathematically provable strategy. JP Morgan studied 20 years of the S&P 500, modeled what would happen if investors miss the best market days. Now, these days were most likely to be missed because those high days always followed those panic, or those days that really preceded them were very negative. When you start looking at a $10,000 investment in the S&P 500, 20 years fully invested grew to about $64,000, having about a 10.5% return. If you miss the 10 best days of the market, that return goes down to 6.2%, and you're looking at roughly $32,000 that you made. Then we go to 20 days. If you miss the top 20 days, your return would go to 3.6%, portfolio roughly worth about $20,000. If you miss the best 30 days of the market, that return goes to 1.4%, portfolio now worth $13,000 on a 20-year time frame of investing. Over 20 years, 5,000 trading days during that time, missing just the 30 best days of all trading days, takes your return from 10.5% to 1.4% and takes your 10,000 from that 64K to 13,000. Now, this part might make you physically uncomfortable when you hear that, because when you look at 7 of the best 10 days in the last 20 years, they occurred within 15 days of the worst days that the market has ever seen. The single best day from the COVID crash, which was March 24th, the S&P 500 rose 10% the next day, right after the market completely bottomed out. In October 2008, the S&P 500 rose 11% in a single day. That was in the middle of the financial crisis when the housing market was melting down. The investors who sold during the worst days of the market and sat on cash in the sidelines like I did, waiting to reinvest, sitting and watching and not being able to catch the top market days that we have ever seen. Now, this is not a coincidence. This is the mechanism. The best rebounds often happen when sentiment is worse, when the crash feels more like it's going to be something that is permanent, when every rational decision seems like an argument to stay out of the market in the entirety. The investors who captured those best days didn't only time the rebound, but they got it correctly. Then they captured them without ever leaving and without ever selling, which is the whole reason for this video. If you watched Tuesday's video, you know that I broke this rule. In 2008, I did just that. I sold out of my portfolio, sat at the bottom, watched the recovery happen completely without me, and I told you that cost me probably 10, maybe hundreds of thousands of dollars because of selling out. And today, I want to put JP Morgan's data really in the top story because that is a big, big part. When we look at October 28th of 2008, the S&P 500 rose 10.8% in a single day. That was the day that I was already out of the market. I had sold out completely. I missed October 28th and days before it, and even days after it. I missed the March 23 of 2009, which again was another 7% recovery day. I missed the beginning of what became one of the biggest bull runs that we've ever seen in history, not because I was unintelligent, not because I was misinformed, because I made that decision to sell out of the portfolio and really before the panic peaked. I mean, it was precisely poised in position to miss some of those best market days that we've ever seen. The JP Morgan data did not describe what a hypothetical investor would do. It described me perfectly when I sold out of the market. Now, of course, the decision that I made in 2020 was different. I decided in advance I would not sell, and I have not sold ever since getting back into the market, regardless of what it does. Now, when COVID hit in March of 2020, the S&P 500 fell 34% for 33 days. I held it in the entirety. I was actually buying dollar cost averaging going through. Then we start looking at March 24th of 2020. S&P went up 9.4% in a single day. I owned every single share, and I actually owned a lot more shares during the recovery because I made the difference in really the decision that I was no longer going to sell, that life is about the accumulation of assets, and I knew the behavioral decisions that I had made before and really made an advance, and that is the difference as I've matured as an investor going back to 2008 to where I am today. Not a different ETF, not a different strategy, just a different default and a different mindset that I have today when it comes to that accumulation of assets. Now, of course, 3 of the most successful investors in history arrived at the very same rule, but in very different directions. Jack Bogle built Vanguard on the principle that the average investor's greatest enemy is themselves. He created index funds, which I love so near and dear to my heart, specifically to remove the selling decision from the equation. A fund so broad that there is never a rational argument to sell because selling it means you're selling the entire economy if you look at the VOO. His actual rule, don't do something, just stand there. 4 words, the entire philosophy of passive investing in just one simple sentence. Warren Buffett bought Coca-Cola in 1998. He still holds it today. The position is now worth approximately $25 billion, not from any particular quarterly insight or repositioning, from one decision made and maintained for 37 years in one single company. Buffett's standing still holds forever. His actual explanation, lethargy, bored on sloth, remains the cornerstone of our investing style. The most successful investor in modern day history, describing his strategy, has done and does almost nothing. Now, Charlie Munger said it more directly. The big money is not in buying and selling, but in waiting. Not in identifying the right entry point, not in rotation between sectors, in waiting. In not selling, it is treating the decision to hold as an active investment decision rather than a passive default. All 3 of these individuals said the same thing. The wealthy investor is not a better analyst, they are a better waiter, and the time is all that we do have. Now, here's what my never sell rule specifically means for my portfolio that we built. When we look at the SPMO, I bought it when almost no one was discussing it. That was a number of years ago. The momentum reconstitution in March seen a 54% portfolio turnover inside the fund. Meta was removed, Nvidia moved to the top, rewires itself automatically, which I love with momentum funds. Didn't have to make a single decision, didn't have to sell. The index and these automated ETFs will do it for me. The never sell rule with the SPMO means never selling the SPMO, not the individual stocks inside of it. When the index manages on a schedule and it changes every 6 months, the holding decision at that funding level is going to stay at 30%. Now, this also connects me yesterday to what we talked about with the QQQI, the cover call structure. Now, this is a very specific sense. The opposite of never sell rule is applied to this ETF mechanically. Every month, QQQI sells away part of the future gains, but it does cap them, surrendering the option to the buyer and handing back the premium. Now, the interesting thing to consider with the QQQI is when you look at the total return. So if you are returning the 14% that it's making, it runs almost hand in hand to where we are with the S&P 500. But of course, it's very interesting because the never sell rule says, do not voluntarily surrender your future gains to anyone. Hold them, let them compound. The QQQM at 20% is a never sell version that I have of the NASDAQ 100 exposure. The QQQI is the yield extraction version. If you're taking the money out, it is a whole different story, and that ETF does fit a really different bill. Now, of course, if you watch Monday's video, 6 habits, holding for decades, not quarters, it's exactly what I do. The habits were expressed as data. The JP Morgan charts that we showed you, and really the 2008 story is habit number 6 that I broke. When I went and I sold, the never sell rule, again, years and years ago, is something that I needed to focus on. And I know at this point going forward, it is going to be about never selling. Now, all the videos this week have been built around a single behavioral thesis, the important to invest in knowing what you're investing in and knowing what to buy and not what to buy, and also not selling. So here's the rules in a complete form. Never sell is kind of naive. It's not, don't ignore the risk or ignore the risk in its entirety. It is the precision understanding of where your investment returns actually come from, not correctly identifying it when you get out of a position, when you get into a position, but being present on those best days, and they are impossible to predict. That is the reason why when you start looking at some of the worst days, they are followed by some of the best days. That is the reason between making a portfolio of $64,000 or $13,000 with that same $10,000. If you missed out on those 30 days, you would be missing out on a majority of the returns that we have in there. Now, of course, Bogle said, don't do something, just stand there. Warren Buffett said, lethargy, boarding on sloth. Munger said, the big money is in waiting. And I am saying the 2008 version of me does not exist and did not follow this rule. The 2020 version of me as an investor is going to hold this forever. One of the big reasons why I made this channel was to share the information. Now, of course, guys, drop a comment down below. What is the hardest part of the never sell rule? And I've gotten a lot of comments lately about selling out of the SPMO or even the semiconductor funds. Is there a specific position that is down? Are the headlines right now making you super nervous or seeing the 5 to 7% drawback? Or is it something else in the entirety? Because I know what it is, and I know it is hard to hold it and really hold it for an extended amount of time. But I read every single reply, and I will respond to you. Subscribe this week if we change your investing thought in some way, and I'll catch you in the next video.